Hello, my name is Thomas Yelloweyes with Night Train Pickleball, and as you know, we have broken down the game of pickleball into 5 phases. First phase being the serve, the second phase being the return. The third phase is the third shot drop or advancing to the kitchen line. The fourth phase is the dinking or the short game, and the fifth phase is the put away shot or hitting the winner. And today we're going to cover the first phase, which is the serve. The 5 phases of pickleball: serve, return, no volley zone, advancing to short game, dinking, put away shot, hitting a winner. It is very important to note that you cannot move to the next phase until the phase that you're in is completed. So you're the serving team, you serve the ball, that phase is done, and then the team that returns it, then you're into the next phase, which is the advancing to the no volley zone. And it's important to note that at this point that if both players don't make it to the no volley zone, then you're still in the return phase of the game. And then when both players move to the no volley zone, then you're now into phase 4, which is the short game or the dinking. And then of course that is where we want to be to get the setup shot or the put away shot that's going to allow us to hit the winner. So that's why it's important, and we're going to go through each one of these phases, and today we're going to talk about the first phase of pickleball, which is the serve. And the play cannot start or continue until the ball is served successfully into the opponent's court. And what does that look like? That looks like this right here. So we have player A serving it to player B, which is me. You'll also notice that Ruth, if you know who Ruth is, when I cleared the background on that picture, she did not, for some reason it didn't remove her, so I actually had to put an arrow over her. So sorry, Ruth. We can all laugh and let her know later if you know who she is. But that's essentially, in that picture, server A serving to server B. That's what we're looking for right there. So let's talk about the different types of serves, right? So we have keeping the ball low serve stance. So you'll see where the arrows are, one the arrow where the ball is and the other arrow where the back of me. So you'll see that the first arrow, the tall one, is indicating that I'm standing taller. So I'm standing more more upright. The ball is closer to me, the ball being also more under my upper body. So even though I have a slight lean forward, the body is closer to my knee, if you will. There's a low arc on the ball, which means the ball is moving faster, right? And then it's a lower bounce. So this is typically my stance when I do low serve. So then when we move to the higher serve stance, you'll notice that I'm standing lower, that I move my body down. And this is essentially so I can get under the ball without having to raise the ball up very much. So the ball now is a little bit more away from my body. It's held a little higher, but it's still in meets all the criteria of a legal serve. There's a higher arc on the ball, and of course that means there's a higher bounce. And so it's going to be a longer serve, and it's going to be opportunity for them to have to return a longer return to me, right? So there's multiple options to this, and it's obviously some strategy involved that we're going to get into in a second. So the next one that we want to talk about is serving position, right? So this is where we're starting to get into the good stuff. This is even before we hit the ball, right? This is where it gets a little bit exciting. So if you're in level 1, you know that we're just working on getting the ball in. Now we're going to find out what all of that means. So serving position 1, the very most important thing to do is to make sure that you keep equal distance from each other. So keep the same distance apart from your partner, which is essentially like 10 feet, right? So that's like 20 feet across. So 10 feet apart, and that puts you in the middle of each box. So you're not having a big hole somewhere. In fact, if anything, you want to close the distance between you and your partner, if that makes sense. So you're not giving up the middle, right? And there's a reason for that. When we get into returns and defense, we can talk about that more. But for now, you can see that the server, so basically wherever the server sets up, and you'll see in that picture, the player on the right or me, is the server sets up based on strategy, whatever they're going to try to do with the serve. And the partner will keep equal distance based on that. So wherever I set up, they're going to make sure they're the same distance away, which indicates the arrows in between okay? And so then when we did go from there to the next one, you will see that in server position 2, that I serve closer to the inside line. So I have actually moved closer to the inside line, which means now my partner moves closer to the outside line for him, but we're still keeping the same distance, right? And there's reason for that. So for me, I can look and see I'm going to open up the forehand for our third shot opportunity. So I know if like both of us have strong forehands, and that gives us the best opportunity to hit a third shot drop, third shot drive, whatever we may choose to do. So we're going to line up closer to I'm going to line up as a server closer to the inside line, which means I'm going to push my partner to the outside line, which then as a return, you start looking to see where the open court is. It's obviously going to give you the option, the probably likely that you're going to go to either one of our forehands, because those are where the holes are, right? And then the other side of that may be if I know that my partner has a weak backhand and I want to protect that, I want to also make it very hard for the return team to hit my partner a backhand. So closing down the court on his backhand side will force them to have to either make it an amazing shot, or they're going to just go ahead and play the forehand, which is then ultimately a win for us, right? And so then the next option we have is the where I move to as the server moves to the line, outside line, which brings my partner into the middle line, right? And so when we do that, what we're looking, so say both of you are opposite. So I'm a right-hander, or I'm a left-hander server, and my partner's a right-handed, right? Or opposite. So I'm right-handed and they're left-handed, and they're paddles to the outside. Well, what that means is if I bring them in closer to the line, then it opens up their forehand side and allows the partner to want to, the return team to hit it to their forehand. Okay, so there's obviously, through all of this, what I'm trying to say is that you can use strategy just setting up for the serve. You can decide where you want to encourage the return team to hit it to give you the best opportunity to get the next shot even more successful and give it a higher percentage of being successful to set you up to get to the no volley zone or the kitchen line, right? So it's very important that you really, pay attention to this, and more importantly, you really pay attention to your partner, because after a couple of points, you're going to know if you're paying attention what your partner's strengths are and what your partner's weaknesses are, and you should be able to start setting yourself up for that, if that makes sense. Okay, so the next thing we're going to jump into is serve type 1. Just real quick, there's 3 different serves that we really work on, and the one is the medium arch, and this is the majority of the serves. This is just basically your normal serve, which you see most people hit. It has a medium arch. It's not really high and it's not really low, and it's not really fast or really slow. It's just really a natural in-between ball that's hit to get the game going. And that's the one that you really definitely want to master first before you start getting into anything else, right? And then the next thing is the high arch deep serve. And there's a really good big purpose for this, one being that you hit that ball high and long. It gives you a lot of time to get set up for the next shot, but it also drives the returner back, because a lot of them will want to play the bounce, which means they want to play the ball on the way back down from the bounce. So you can back them up, and then it also now makes their return, they have to hit it harder and longer to get a decent return. Because a lot of times what they'll do, if they don't run out of space chasing the bounce, they'll hit the ball and it'll actually be a short return, which then allows you to actually get to the ball. They're out of position and actually allow you to get to the no volley zone before the other team can get there. And so now they're both caught out of position, or at least one of them's caught out of position, and both of you are in position, and now you have the advantage. So there is an advantage to that. So this is another one that you will start looking at working on, right? And then you have the third serve, which a lot of people will jump to. So they'll go from the first serve to this serve, which is the low arch driving serve. While this one's like barely clearing the net or clearing it, by 4 or 5 inches. And, it hits and it really doesn't bounce that high. And a lot of times, especially on the outside court, it'll skip. And it's a really effective. But just keep in mind with all of these serves, right? Keep in mind that you do one of these, so you learn this serve right here, the low arch driving serve. Over time, people are going to figure it out. So it may work for a couple months, it might work for 6 months, but at some point, players are going to figure out that this is your only serve, and it will give them enough practice to figure out this is what you do. So you want to know the 3 different types of serves, and you want to be effective with all 3. So start with the basic serve, really get that one down, really feel comfortable with it. Go to the second serve, get it down, get really comfortable with it. Start figuring out how to incorporate it into your normal serve, and then of course getting to serve 3, you're learning to get that one down, you get comfortable with it, and then you're able to incorporate all 3 of these serves. And I promise you, later on, once you start learning these serves, you're going to be able to start picking out where your returner is setting up, where the partner is setting up, even when they're up on the line. And it's going to really allow you to start knowing, okay, this serve is going to be effective, and why it's going to be effective, right? Especially if you have somebody who's a weak hitter, they don't hit the ball very hard. A deep serve might be the thing to force them to have to try to get it back over the net, right? Or they don't pick up the ball really well off the ground, then the driving serve might be the thing to go. But you just have to be able to be comfortable with all of them and be able to start working on when those things can be used in your strategy, right? And don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that you're trying to win points on the serve, because when you get to the pro level, they're not winning points on serves. They're going through all of the phases of the game, and one team definitely makes a big mistake, they can get a point that way. But typically, it gets to phase 5 before one of the teams makes a point. So it's something very important to pay attention to. Okay. So that is those are the 3 serves. And then, so what we're going to do is we're going to jump right into then a couple drills that you can do, because there's so much information in a serve that we've broken it down into 2 parts. So this will be part 1, and I definitely want to make sure that I'm covering a pretty good amount in this one to lead you into the second one. So what we're going to do is we're going to start introducing a couple games that you can start doing to work on just what we've talked about. And the first one is a cone serve game, number 1, which is knocking cones down, scoring points, right? And this actually is a pretty good one to play against somebody, so you could actually set it up on both sides of the court and have both players going at the same time, or you could go one at a time and one person keeps score while the other one's hitting, right? So knocking cones down, scoring points. You line the cones up middle court. In the middle of that court, you 10 to 20 serves, however many you decide you want to do, and how many times you knock down each cone, right? So there'll be 3 cones, and you're working on knocking them down. And it'll also tell you where you're effective and where you're needing to work. So then you move cones back, and then you do 10 to 20 serves again and keep score. And then you move cones back as you guys get better. And so I have a little note here for those who know. Remember your thumb, because the thumb is wherever you push your thumb during that strike or during the serve or whatever ground stroke, that's where the ball's going to go. So what does that look like? That easy drill, serve drill here is to serve to the back. So you'll see the 3 cones, right? This is what we were talking about, the 3 cones set up across. That's about middle of the court. And I have it broken down a little bit. So like if you go to the far left cone there, you're serving to a backhand of a right-hand player, right? And so then if you serve straight on, you're serving straight at the player. And then if you serve to the forehand, you see the forehand. Now remember, if you have a lefty over there, then it's just reversed. But it's interesting to know that you might get the opportunity, I would, to test out all 3 of those. If I have control of all 3 of those shots, then on a serve, then I want to take them, and to see, I can start feeling out the player on the other side. and see if where they're weak and where I could potentially get them to hit a shot that is going to be to our advantage, right? And so then of course this next one is showing you how to move the cones back, right? I wouldn't necessarily move it all the way to the back line, but I would get it as close as I can. 12, 18 inches is probably good. And if you can get that far, you're doing really well, right? And then we'll have another drill in the next video that'll even build on this one, okay? But that'll give you an idea of what. And so the idea is to knock down the cone. All right, so then we're going to serve game number 2. And this was placing ball into square, scoring points. And you can use cones on this. I'm not as concerned about the cones, because this is actually, now you're getting a little more specific about what you're doing with it. So the number 1 is your cut, receiving, square, and have, as in diagram, which I'll show you in the next slide. Working on hitting one side and then the other, which is very important. Keep score of how many times in a row you hit one side, how many times in a row you hit the other side. Again, 10 to 20 serves and keep score, move line back and go again, right? So what that looks like is, this is where we are, is to serve to the backhand. So I've cut it into the back half into halves. So you see where the cones are, and right in the middle. And then I'm working on hitting closer to the inside line on one side and closer to the outside line on the other. Now, I'm not saying aim for the outside line. I'm just saying, mark it out where you know where the middle is and go for that, because the ball, coming at the angle it's going to go, you're going to really, you're really going to go after somebody's forehand or somebody's backhand, okay? And again, that's just feeling it out, seeing what strength is the returner and what their weakness is, right? That's what you're doing. It's just all strategy, but this is setting you up. And of course, then you move the cones back, and you close the gap a little bit, and you aim for a little further back, right? So all of this is necessary, even the close ones, right? So we're always talking about serving as far back to the line as you can in the basic, in the very beginning, in level 1, and then of course in level 2 now we're getting more specific. So in this level, we're not too concerned about can you control hitting the ball in the direction that you want to. Now it's more about placement. So if you're having issues with even just controlling, go back and working on driving your thumb or pushing your thumb to where you want the ball to go, and start working on consistency. Start working on, as balls are being hit to you, that you consistently can control that ball to hit it where you want it to go. Because once you can do that, then these drills become a lot more effective for you. And then you don't have to think about, can I really hit the ball over there, or am I just trying to hit the ball back, right? So there you go. This is a good start for the first week. And, the really cool thing is you can let us know your feedback on what you think about these, and what what you really liked and how your results have been. Okay, so we'll see you soon. Thank you for joining Night Train Pickleball. Today, as we covered one of the 5 phases of the game of pickleball. We look forward to seeing you on the court soon.